Welcome back to episode 7 of I Took the Risk. I'm your host, Corey Bishop, and here we have Mr. Nate Evans Jr., a speaker, an author, and a mental health advocate. So, who is Nate Evans Jr.?
Man, Nate Evans Jr. is, first and foremost, man, a child of God. First and foremost, I am a creative, an author, a speaker, mentor, mental health advocate, family man. Mm-hmm. That's really me in a nutshell.
Okay. Family oriented. Dive a little deeper. Siblings. Where you from, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I have 2 younger brothers. Okay. One that's 4 years younger than me, then another one that's only 8 years old. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother story.
Wow.
It's a big gap between us, like crazy gap. Uh-huh. And I have a stepsister as well.
Okay.
I grew up in Pleasantville, New Jersey, Pleasantville and Atlantic City. I kind of went from house to house. So I lived a little bit in Atlantic City, which people know because it's famous. And then I lived a little bit in Pleasantville, which is probably 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes from Atlantic City. So that's where I was born and raised, kind of just moving around the city, ended up staying out there.
Okay. So you have a quote, I'm pretty sure it's famous around when you go to your speaking engagements and stuff like that. Change what we normalize. Why is that so significant to you?
Yeah, so that was birthed out of frustration, right? Let me explain. This had to be maybe 2 to 3 years ago. There was a lot of like shootings in Atlantic City, but it was like teens being killed, like young kids, teens being killed. And this was like, it was a crazy like year. It started off like hot, like people literally dying every week. And I was asked to come speak at a Stop the Violence walk out in Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. And I was really frustrated. Like I didn't want to do it at all because I'm like, yo, we only meet on these kind of occasions when people are getting murdered or something like that. Now the whole community wants to galvanize and get together and march and we need to change this and do this. And I'll be honest, I was super frustrated. I'm like, yo, I'm not doing it. But I ended up going out to the walk, marching. We marched through the city, got over to this baseball field, and then they asked me to speak. So I grabbed the mic and I kind of just went off, like low key went off. And again, it was all out of frustration, but love at the same time. Like, look, we can't keep meeting like this. Mm-hmm. Like, you're here for the political, picture and all of these different things. But what about when the cameras leave? Like, are y'all in the streets? Are you stopping these kids when you see them? Or are you walking right past them? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we're seeing them do something. We're seeing the teens wild out, whatever it is, and we're moving right past them and ignoring it, but then complaining about it later and then getting together when somebody gets killed. I'm like, yo, we can step in. Like, this is our community as well. Let's step in and be supportive. They want love. And the whole quote of change what we normalize just happened to just come out my mouth. Like God spoke through me like, yo, we need to change what we normalize because what was normal isn't working anymore. And I left that event, that violent, that kind of like that peace walk. And it just kept replaying in my mind, change what we normalize. And I was like, this is even bigger than this event here. This is like whatever it is in your life. You know what I'm saying? I make it as simple as, you trying to lose weight or whatever, or put on muscle, whatever it is. Like, yo, just change what we normalize. What were you doing before that was normal, that wasn't working? And it just applies to every aspect of life. But yeah, it was birthed out of frustration during a very challenging time, mentally and emotionally for me. And it's been a movement ever since to just simply change what we normalize.
I think that's very important, what you said, changing what we see as normal because what we see as normal isn't always what's expected or what should be expected. You said something about the mental health thing. So as an entrepreneur, how do you maintain mental health going through your day-to-day, your daily schedule? Or what tips could you give some business owners that are struggling with that aspect with their business?
Yeah, so one of the most challenging things for me was rest. Mm-hmm. For business owners, entrepreneurs, people who even just work a job or whatever the case is, when you're in that hustle and bustle, one of the most challenging things to do is rest. And for me, I got hospitalized twice, and they both happened to be from exhaustion. So for me, I grew up with this sense of like I lacked self-worth, right? And because I lacked self-worth, I always like, look, I'm going to earn, this worthiness. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm going to outgrind everybody. And I would literally work myself almost into the ground to a point where I literally, the first time it happened, I passed out in the post office. Thank God my mom was there. End up in the back of the ambulance, and I'm looking around like, what's going on? Second time I pass out, I'm in my bathroom now, and my fiance comes in the bathroom and sees me like passed out in the shower from exhaustion and stress. So I had to learn to be very intentional with rest. And when I say rest, I'm not talking about going to sleep. I'm saying just shutting it down so I can be more productive when I get back to the business stuff. Like a lot of times for me, I didn't take enough time to sit and just think. If you're a creative, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, you need time to like think. You need time to sit and literally do nothing and just think. Grab your notebook. If you got to meditate, pray, read, whatever that is, but you got to shut off the phone, shut off the TV, shut off the laptop. And like, yo, I ain't crunching numbers today. I'm not talking about products. I'm going to just think. That's how we get these creative ideas and things happen. But for me, I just kept pushing until I literally just burnt out. So if it was any advice that I had to give to anybody, especially entrepreneurs, be intentional about your rest. And for me, it wasn't easy. I'm always somebody moving, trying to bust a move, trying to connect, trying to do this. So for me, my fiance had to really get on me like, yo, rest. Like today, you don't need to do nothing. Like sit down. Don't be running around. Don't go in the streets. Don't be making phone calls, checking out. Like just relax and shut things down and allow yourself time to think. Yo, what is Nate thinking right now? What am I trying to process? Because when I do that, every single time I do that, I come back to work, I get back on my hustle, and I'm much better. And I have different ideas and different things spark, and I can move with a lot clearer thoughts. But a lot of times we have that hustle, grind mentality, especially when you're just starting something from the ground and it's not popping off. You think you need to work 24/7. Yeah. And ultimately you're going to burn out.
Yeah. I see a lot of posts on social media talking about the grind. My grind is hard. My grind is this. My grind is that. But like you said, that rest time is key because that gives you the energy and the rejuvenation to come and bounce back and have better ideas than you thought you even had before. Right. Man, that's key. So speaking of ideas, you have 2 books out. So where did those kind of ideas, specifically speaking, the building muscle, how did that idea come about?
So that came about, I had graduated from local community college, Atlantic Cape, before I went to Rowan and got my bachelor's degree. Within that process, I started to write this book. What happened was, I'm a first generation high school graduate and first generation college graduate. When I graduated from high school, I had a full ride scholarship to play basketball in Memphis, Tennessee. So my whole goal in life was to play professional ball, make this money, send some back home, the typical dream for a kid in the hood, whatever it is. Absolutely. So that was my goal. As soon as I graduated high school, the summer before I was supposed to go to Memphis, my papa passed away. It's extremely close to me. Like we were like this. And I grew up in a community where as a young black male, you couldn't express your emotions. You couldn't say how you felt. You could be disrespected. All these different things can happen, right? So when he had passed away, it was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back because I didn't know how to process this. I didn't know who to talk to about what was going on, how I was feeling emotionally. So I would go down to Memphis, Tennessee to school late after he passed away, and then I dropped out after the first semester. And I had a full ride scholarship, you know what I'm saying? Like full ride, my parents had to pay $1. I dropped out, came home, worked a little bit, worked up another scholarship, ended up going to a school in New Mexico, a military institute. Was out there for about a year, came back home, same situation. So I bounced around. I went to 5 different schools. I was in North Jersey at Caldwell. I came back to ACCC. Like I literally bounced around from school to school to school, constantly running from this emotional pain, this mental pain, these traumas, these demons. I was just running from it. I knew how to run, but I didn't know how to address it. And it wasn't until I was home at one time, I had just lost a friend to suicide and another one to prison. He's still in there today for a gun charge or a murder charge. And I remember being super depressed, like dark. And it was the first time in my life where I started to think about suicide. I really started to think about it and I started to contemplate it and what would happen and nobody would miss me. And I was blessed to have one of my very close friends, one of my best friends. His name is Tony. He started taking me to the gym. And this is where you kind of get the building muscle concept from, right? So he started taking me to the gym. And what was special about this was when we got to the gym, he had introduced me to 2 other men, 2 other black men, look just like me, older gentlemen though. And before we would go out and work out, we would sit in the locker room, kind of how we are now. We'd be chilling just like this, and we would have conversations about life. Like we weren't talking about women, sex. We barely talked about sports, any of that stuff. We were literally just being vulnerable and transparent with each other. And they initiated it. And for me, I was like, yo, this is different. Like, this is different. Like, I've never been around this. Like, I didn't grow up in this type of environment. So to have dudes in here with beards and tattoos talking like this, yo, it blew my mind. You know what I'm saying? But from there, I started to get more comfortable with opening up about how I was feeling and what was going on. And through that, I started to gain a little bit of healing, and I started to write again. I've always been a writer since I was a kid, like creative writing. I've always loved writing, telling stories and things like that, writing poetry, whatever it was. I always loved writing. So I started to use it as another outlet, just starting to write. You know, we're in the gym getting it in. I would go home and I'm just writing, expressing myself. And from there, I was like, I want to tell, you know, my journey a little bit more, especially after I had got through school and got my bachelor's degree. I'm like, this can help somebody, right? So I started to look back and connect the dots of what had happened from the time of me graduating as a first generation high school graduate, because my parents dropped out when they had me, to this point of like, oh, I got my bachelor's degree and I survived all of this and I built resilience through this and I learned lessons through this. So I started to like journal out everything. And I remember I'm writing a book and I had my laptop. My laptop broke down. So I'm like, yo, is it meant to be for me to write this book or whatever? At the time I had this iPad mini. I had an iPad mini with a cracked screen at the bottom. So I just started typing in pages on there. Every day I would take about an hour to 2 hours and just write whatever was on my mind. Some days is a paragraph, some days is 3 pages. But I would write all these stories that I remember from when I was in Memphis, from when I was in New Mexico. What were the lessons I learned? And I put the whole thing together as a book. And I put the first edition out, which was really rough because I didn't know how to format a book. I didn't know how to edit. It was just raw. Like, it was some typos in there. But I put that thing out and I had a few people read it and people supported it. And I had one young man, I never forget, he had read the book like several times. And he was like, yo, this book saved my life. And I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And it made me appreciate the journey that I had went through. So I went back, once I learned more about the publishing industry, how to start a publishing company, all these different things, I professionally did the book all over again and made a second edition. So that's the one you've seen. And then I added an additional chapter as well. So that's how you get the title of Building Muscle, because it started in the gym. But the book has nothing to do with fitness. It's all about mind. So when it says building muscle, it's literally building mind. It's building your mindset, you know, building resilience, building endurance, building mental strength. And that's why the subtitle is Life is Your Trainer. A lot of people bought the book and thought it was a fitness book. Like, I thought it was I didn't know you went through this. I thought it was a fitness book. I said, nah, you obviously didn't read the back of the book. The back, the back cover or whatever. But yeah, it was a play on words because I was a trainer, a full-time trainer at the time when I wrote it. And people supported it, but that's where the whole mission and the company of just like building muscle. I was like, I want this to really be something because no matter what happens in life, if you're resilient, you're building muscle. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Man, you said a lot. That was very key to, I think, with connecting the dots is important. But before we pivot, you said something about the first generation. You're a first generation in many aspects. Are you a first generation entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm a first generation entrepreneur, and it's different, man. It's different because it's one of those things where I can't go talk to necessarily people in my family about it because they just don't know. My family, and I love my family, but they're workers. They work, 9 to 5. You get paid. You know what you got your pension. You got your weeks off or whatever. And for me, I've never been able to conceptualize doing that for the rest of my life. I'm like, I get one time here. God bless me with some gifts that I'm supposed to use, that he told me to use. Right. And if it's meant for me, he'll make a way. Right. Like, we all have our path. We all have our lane. So for me, it's been challenging over the years. My parents are getting it more and more, but it's only because they see the results. Like, I had to convince my mom and my dad through, results. Like, you change their life, they'll start to see things. So I had, ACCC had honored me with top 4 under 40, like awarded alumni. They brought me out. I spoke at the ceremony. They let me walk at the graduation. And I brought my dad with me, and they gave him like VIP service, bro. Like, they came and picked him up in the golf cart. Okay. So he like, yo, you really the man out here. I'm like, I'm not bragging, but I'm like, yo, your son is doing some stuff. I let him meet the president of the school. They gave him all this special stuff, a special dinner. And then the day before, I took my mom to an awards dinner where I spoke at, and it was all like, your son is amazing, this. And I'm like, that's what it took. For me, trying to explain it to you isn't working. And I got frustrated trying to I'm trying to do this entrepreneur thing. And they just couldn't. I don't understand. It don't make sense. Like, you ain't got no job. It's pretty much what you're telling me.
Right.
That you broke out here in these streets and you ain't getting no money. And I'm just like, nah, y'all missing it. Like, I got to do this. But it's encouraged them. It's inspired them. And yes, it's challenging being first generation.
Absolutely. I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were telling me the same thing. Like, with them being the first generation entrepreneur as well, you know, your parents or the older generation doesn't really understand, because they're used to working at 9 to 5, getting that pension, 401k, versus us. It's like, all right, I know that I can do this. I have these ideas. I have this creative mind, and I need to get it out. Definitely, man. That's cool. So with inspirational speaking being one of your titles, what keeps you motivated to keep doing it?
Yeah, it's if I can be honest, it's definitely my family. I would say probably my youngest brother, who's 8, because I see so much of me in him, and I want him to be exposed to different things. Also, my fiance, if I'm being honest, she really inspires me because of how incredible and how hard she works. So she's in her doctorate program. Like, she's a beast with what she does. She works as a therapist. Like, she's incredible. And to see how she shows up and makes no excuses, it inspires me to wake up and just kind of get after it. And I would say one of the main things, honestly, is that I love serving people. So I love seeing people do well. So like, even with my friends, I love to celebrate their victories. And for me, I've always been the type of person where I'm a shepherd first. So it's like, if I'm gonna come in here and it's like, yo, we gotta set something up, yo, how can I help? You know what I'm saying? Can I move some chairs around? I'll stay late after the event. Like, can I move some tables around? Like, to me, that fills me up, helping other people and putting that smile on your face and knowing that you're better. So when it comes to that space of inspiration, knowing that there's still problems in the world, there's still people struggling mentally and emotionally, it's like, yo, I got a job to do. Even when I'm not feeling like it, it's like, yo, I got you. I got some value that I can add to you, and it's gonna really help you. So I'll randomly get up and just start texting people on my phone, friends and stuff that I have, like, hey, just checking in on you. I want to send this encouraging message. Boom. And that fills me up when they're like, yo, you have no idea, I really needed that. That's what really fills me up and inspires me.
No doubt, man. You said something too about your journey a little earlier, with the connecting your dots and everything. Who or what has been most impactful in this journey of you getting to where you are?
To boil it down, who and what has been most impactful? If I can be honest, the most impactful person has probably been my fiance at this moment. Only because she was there when there was none of this. So I met her when I was a senior in high school and she was a junior in high school. Okay. I've been out of school 12 years, her 11, but she was there when I was trying to figure things out. She was there when I was almost homeless on the street. She was there when I was having long nights, waking up crying, stressed, like depressed. She was there through all of that, and she's always been like, keep going, keep pushing. Like, even this was probably about a year ago, I was going through some stuff, different speaking engagements had fell through. I was just really going through a tough time mentally. And I remember sitting in our backyard, just kind of stressed, like, man, I'm done with this, man. Like, this ain't working out, God. Like, I don't get it. And in that moment, she comforted me, right? But she did something incredible. And it wasn't her, like, hey, babe, what you need, this, that. She went up to our office. We have this whiteboard in our office that I write that stuff on. I got, sticky notes on it because I pray for people and stuff like that. And she just wrote big. She said, forget all the reasons it won't work and remember the one reason it will. She just wrote that on the board. I haven't erased it to this day. And she just left.
That's dope.
And she just left. And it was so encouraging because when I think about relationships, a lot of time women are looking for men to take care of everything. But she sees me chasing this dream She sees how serious I am about it, how passionate I am about it, and she fully supports that. And she supported it when it was nothing there, when no checks were coming through, no brand deals, no connections. When I was literally just in the crib, just figuring it out, learning, studying. She's like, yo, just keep going. And I remember asking her one day, we sit in the car, and I'm just like, yo, why are you with me? Like, it don't make sense to me. Like, I wouldn't be with me. It don't make sense. And she was like, I believe in you. I believe in you, and I believe in your potential. And it was literally, I'm talking flat broke. Like, she's driving us around. And I'm just like, it don't make sense. Like, why are you staying with me? And when she said that, I was like, yeah, that put a battery in my back.
Man, that's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Hearing those words, I believe in you, are probably some of the most impactful,
Man.
could be one of the most prolific quotes.
Facts.
Just because of what it does to a person. Just knowing somebody believes in you, whether it's that one person or whether it's other 1,000 people, just having somebody believe in you is extremely important.
Facts.
Because that's what's going to fuel your fire at the end of the day. So you kind of talked about your book a little bit, or the first one.
Mm-hmm.
What sparked the idea of not building muscle, but I love you letters to a black man from a black man to a black boy?
Yeah, so, man, that's an incredible story, actually. I'll be brief with it, too. Mm-hmm. So this is 3 years ago, 2019. Me and my fiance had went to a mental health conference in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. So Taraji P. Henson has her own mental health foundation called the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. And I remember just scouring the internet looking for conferences to go to. And I'm like, yo, I just want to go learn more so I can bring it back to the community. Like, I'm really passionate about this advocacy stuff. I want to teach more, all these different things. So I found a conference. I'm like, yo, we should go. And she's like, all right, cool. Because she gets continuing education credits for it because she has a license and all these things. So she's like, all right, cool, we'll do it. So we book a room, we go down to DC, we get to the conference, and it's all black mental health professionals. So brain surgeons, therapists, psychologists. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I've never been in a spot like this. And it's all of y'all are like in this space. Mm-hmm. And they had celebrities there, Morris Chestnut, Charlamagne the God, all these people, right? And when you go to a conference, it's broken up into sessions. So you pick which sessions you want to go to. Mm-hmm. So she went to a session with Dr. Joy, I think DeGruy. She wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And I went to another session for men called Man Up. And there was this guy named Dr. Michael Lindsay. I'll never forget him, from NYU. Okay. And he did this presentation on black boys and suicide rates. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things he said was, love black men and children as if they've never been hated. And I was like,
you saw that was
what? Yeah. I'm looking around the room like, am I the only one that heard that? Because it hit me. I'm like, yo. And I wrote it down immediately. Long story short, we stayed there for the conference week, and it's incredible. We're making the connections. I did an interview there, all these dope stuff. I got to meet all these people. And I got home, and I'm like, yo, what can I do? Because I'm really big on doing purposeful work. Absolutely. Because I believe you can make profit doing purposeful work as well. Mm-hmm. And I got home, I'm like, yo, I'm not a therapist. I can't do group sessions. I can't, do any of that stuff. What can I do? What gifts do you have, Nate? And I felt like God was like, write. I'm like, all right, I can write. And I had this idea to write letters because the theme of the conference was really, bringing these resources back to your community and destigmatizing, that mental health conversation for black people. Mm-hmm. And for me, what I took from that was love. Love was what was missing. We lacked love. And when I got home, I'm starting to write. I'm going to write these letters of love to these black boys. I'm going to write 60, 70 letters. I'm going to pour into them. Mm-hmm. And I got 3 letters in, and I was like, yo, that's all I got. I was like, I don't know if I got 70 in me. So I got discouraged. I'm not going to lie. And I prayed on it. And I was like, you know what? Let me get other black men involved. So I started to reach out to other black men who are successful in their own rights, entrepreneurs, some are in higher education, real estate, politics, healthcare. And I'm reaching out to these guys that I have relationships with. I'm like, yo, I hope that they gonna, want to be a part of this or whatever. So they all agree. They all agree to be a part of it. And I'm like, bet. So we start working on the book, and I still haven't got the title yet. I'm like, shoot, what am I going to call this? And I literally felt like God was saying, I love you. I'm like, what? I love you? What? I just keep hearing I love you. I'm like, I'm trying to think of a title.
Right.
I need a title.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I love you. I'm like, nah, that's not the wave. I can't write this from a man. I love you. I love you. I'm like, yo, it just wouldn't escape my mind. Mm-hmm. So I sat on it, I'm like, that's the title. I love you. So as soon as you pick this book up, the first thing you're going to say is, I love you. If you haven't heard it from anybody else,
Right.
you heard it from us.
Absolutely.
Just subconsciously, you're just picking up, I love you. That'll make you pick it up just from what it says. Mm-hmm. So we started working on the book. That was in 2019. We began working on the book. 2020 happened, right? And none of us knew what was going to happen in 2020, right? We think it's the year of vision.
Right. Yeah.
We about to turn up. And I remember February 2020, I jumped on a Zoom call with all the guys that contributed to the book. I'm like, yo, this is the mission. This is the vision. Love black men and boys as if they've never been hated. We're going to write these letters with passion. I want you to follow this theme. Let's get busy. And March, pandemic, everything shut down. Now, granted, we were still good because we were meeting via Zoom and you know, we can type or whatever. But the book was pretty much almost done. And then you had like Ahmaud Arbery happen. And I'm like, yo, what is going on? Mind you, we're working on a book to affirm and empower black men and boys. Like, yo, we love y'all. Like, you powerful, you special, you a king. Like, we're going to continue to put this on you. And then the world shows us how they feel about us. Or I would say America shows us how they feel about us. I'm like, yo. And it's like, yo, the book needs to come out now. Mm-hmm. During a time like this. Like, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And what's wild was before I wrote this book, my focus was going into schools to talk about mental health. It didn't matter if it was a PWI, HBC, whatever it is. And literally, I stopped all of that to focus on pouring into black men and black boys. And I was nervous. I'm like, yo, I'm going to take a pay cut. Like, this is going to be tough. But I'm like, you know what, God, I trust you. Something's going to happen. If this is what you want me to do, I'm going to be obedient, right? Mm-hmm. So I did that. We put the book out. It started doing incredible. People were purchasing the book for, you know, family members in prison. I had one of my boys, he's in Hawaii. He got the book. The book went to the UK, like all these different places. And then the book had went #1 on Amazon, which was like, yo.
That's amazing.
Mind you, I was kind of like, I don't think this is the best idea because I'm thinking business minded, like, yo, I got to stay on my brand. I got to make sure I'm appealing to everybody, right? And to my surprise, it was a lot of, you know, white professors and white people purchasing the book, like wanting to really dive into it and spread this message of just love. And from there, it just grew into like a wildfire, man. And it all happened because I wanted to do something impactful. I wasn't writing a book thinking like, yo, I'm gonna make a bunch of money. Like, okay, this is gonna be crazy. I'm gonna build a brand off of this. I'm gonna do this. It's like, nah, I heard God say, write this to affirm. I did it. I put things in place. And I wouldn't have been able to create that book properly if I hadn't wrote the books before and learned all of my, you know, all the mistakes and everything. So now I'm able to put it out and it does well, and I'm able to use it to pour into and affirm black boys. And until this day, you know, the book's doing well. It's in schools all around the country. People are reading it to their kids, and we just released the audio experience as well.
Okay, that's cool. But you've been in the educational realm, going to speaking, and then I know you told me you have your book actually at Tennessee State. I think that you having somebody teaching what you written, I think that's mind-blowing because now it's going to be ingratiated into the educational system. Yeah. Maybe not only at that school, but maybe somewhere else. And then, you know, a couple of years or years from now, it's in every school's curriculum around the country and maybe even international. Man, that was definitely, like I said, fulfilling. What advice would you give to any future entrepreneurs or just even young people in general that are looking to be an inspirational speaker or be a photographer or just create in general?
Yeah, I would say, it's going to sound, you know, cliche from Nike, but I would say just do it. just get the thing out, because what I learned is everything around us was created from something that was in somebody's mind. And a lot of times we have these things in our mind and we're like, yo, I really want to do this. But then doubt comes in, right? It's like, yo, are people going to support this? People going to listen to me? They want to hear my story? I don't want to hear my story. How am I going to sell this many? I ain't going to be able to do this. I can't create this show. I can't do this podcast. I can't write this book. People ain't going to want it. I don't got nothing of value to give. And it's like, you do. But a lot of times we talk ourselves out before we even put a pen to the paper. And for me, I had to, start taking control of my mind. Like, chill out. Like, you got this. And it's not to say that I don't have doubts now. I always do, especially when I'm going to go speak and people are paying me to share my story. I'm just like, man, y'all tripping. But then I'm like, you know what? You have extreme value to give. That's why you're here. This is your purpose. And for me, I have to talk myself pretty much into it. Like, go out there and be confident. They called you. This is what you're called to do. And if you don't create it, it doesn't happen. And you're just going to be frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Because I have, those family members where you were around the cookout and they're like, I could have been this. I could have did that, right?
Yeah.
I could have had this going. It's just like, I don't want to be that guy ever. So I'd rather, take the risk, name the show, whatever. I'd rather take that risk and just bet on me. And I'd rather fall in that process and learn and grow and continue to grow, because nothing great happens if we don't start it. Like, nobody wants to continue to hear, I got this dope idea, bro. Have you took the first step?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Have you put anything together? Are you trying to do it? And for me, I've always been big on just, let's do some action. You know what I'm saying? Faith without works is dead. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you really got faith, then you're doing something.
Right.
It may not be a lot, but you're doing something to show, like, I got faith that this is going to play out some way, somehow. I don't know how. It's not none of my business to know how, but I know what it is. And I know that every day I'm waking up, and if God, bless me to be able to breathe and have breath in my lungs, I'm going to work towards that thing.
Definitely, man. Thank you. I appreciate that advice, man. Yeah. And I know our viewers are going to appreciate it as well. And you seem to be a pretty religious man. Your shirt, Jesus and Therapy. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I like this saying, man, because you got the best of both worlds. You got the religion, and then you said your fiance's a therapist. So, like, it like goes hand in hand. Could you just tell us, is that like a part of the brand, or is that?
Yeah, so it's not a part of my brand. It's actually a really dope shirt. So this is this guy, Preston Perry. Him and his wife, Jackie Hill Perry. They're poets and artists and authors, and they just really dope people. And they have this line of shirts and hoodies, this Jesus and Therapy. And I'm like, that resonates with me so much.
Absolutely.
Because I remember growing up in the church where it's like everything had to go through the church. It's like therapy was almost like the devil. And it's like we ignored a lot of issues because nobody wanted to go to therapy. Because nobody wanted to seek help. It's like, you just pray it away. And it's like, that's the fan.
Right.
I'm going to for sure pray. But I'm also going to talk to this therapist too and let her know what I got going on, because I need that help. I need practical things, and I believe God uses people for that. But I grew up in a way where it was like, if you didn't pray it away, then you just stuck. And a lot of people suffer. And for me, I was the first one in my family to start going to therapy. So for me, it's like, to break that generational curse, I started to take, things a little more serious with my mental health, because I seen what pain looked like. I seen what trauma looked like. I felt that I was in that. But I didn't know what healing felt like. So I just had to do something different. And it was uncomfortable and scary, but I'm on the other side of that now. And I'm like, y'all need to come out. Like, y'all probably all should go to therapy. I'm going to keep it 100 with you, because you got some unpacked stuff that you really need to let out so you can be better. And then you can go pray.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love that. Yeah, I love that, man. Because I know that a lot of people that grew up in the church don't have that therapy side. They may have the Jesus side, but like you said, God uses people in different ways, in different aspects.
Facts.
Also, so could you tell our viewers where they can find you at on your social media platforms, and maybe if your website?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Nate Evans Jr. on everything. I'm not sure how I was able to do that. I thought it was a pretty common name, but literally, Nate Evans Jr. is my website for booking and things like that. Then my Instagram is Nate Evans Jr. Twitter is Nate Evans Jr. I believe Facebook is probably Nate Evans Jr. LinkedIn. I'm everywhere at Nate Evans Jr. So you can find me on all of those things, even YouTube, Nate Evans Jr. So I was blessed to just take all those, and because I got one, I'm like, let me just try to get all of them.
Yeah.
And I just literally one day just like boom, 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 boom. And you can find me on there. I have my own podcast as well called Change What We Normalize, where we just try to break down disempowering stigmas, have great conversations. I got to get y'all on, actually.
Definitely.
For real.
Definitely.
We got to get on that. Yeah, man, and I'm just out here looking to serve people and take care of my family and really blow up this mission that I'm on.
Oh, man, absolutely. We're definitely able. Thanks again for stopping by. I took the risk. This was a great conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate y'all, man.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.